It's 8 o'clock and I give it a pleasant good evening and welcome to News Desk. 45 minutes of news, funny news, and current affairs department here at the Renaissance Communications Incorporated. My name is Johnson Gbarntolmah Anchoring. Today is Wednesday, May 27, 2026, and welcome to the news program. In our headlines, President Joseph Walker extends greetings to Muslims in Liberia on the celebration of Abraham Day as Grand Mufti of the Supreme Council calls for unity, peace, and reconciliation among Muslims. Foreign Minister Sarah Yanti calls for total reform in the United Nations system and stronger accountability among member states. Former National Public Health Institute of Liberia Director General Dr. Gbarntolmah warned a regional threat to Ebola questions the 4.2 million United States dollars that was requested by health authorities away from Liberia following continuous immigration protests in South Africa was Ghanaians evacuated land in Accra. These plus many more, the reading of the news bulletin sports are all packaged on today's edition of the program. News Desk will take a break. To be back. Thanks for joining us. Let's bring you the news bulletin. President Joseph Walker has extended greetings to Muslims in Liberia and across the world, describing the celebration as a sacred occasion of faith, sacrifice, obedience, compassion, and gratitude. In his message to the Muslim community, President Joseph Walker said the celebration serves as a reminder of the enduring values of devotion to God, serve to humanity, and love for one another. The Liberian leader acknowledged the contribution of Muslims to national development, peace building, education, commerce, and social cohesion, emphasizing that the efforts continue to strengthen the fabric of the nation. The Liberian leader further stated that Liberia remains proud of its religious harmony and diversity, adding that the celebration reflects the spirit of unity and coincide that bind Liberians together as one people and one nation. He encouraged Liberians to embrace kindness, generosity, reconciliation, and mutual respect during the whole season, while urging citizens to reject division and work collectively towards a brighter future for the country. The Grand Mufti of the Supreme Council in Liberia has called for unity, peace, reconciliation among Muslims in the country in order to continue to speak with one voice on national issues. Sheikh Abubakar Samawulu said observance of Abraham Day should serve as a catalyst for unity and peace among Muslims, thereby helping to win more souls for the Islamic faith. Sheikh Samawulu made the statement during a press conference shortly after performing the holy sacrifice by slaughtering a sheep in observance of Abraham Day at the Garden Street Mosque. That's the Grand Mufti, also commended President Joseph Boakai for his role in facilitating the departure of more than 1,000 pilgrims to Mecca, Saudi Arabia. He further thanked the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Morocco for assisting a large number of Liberian Muslims to participate in the pilgrimage to Mecca. Meanwhile, former Liberian President George Weah has extended warm greetings, congratulations, and best wishes to Muslims in Liberia and around the world as they celebrate Abraham Day. He described Abraham Day as a profound, solemn, and joyful occasion, one of the most important holidays in the Muslim calendar. The celebration honored Prophet Abraham's unwavering devotion to God, his willingness to sacrifice his son before God intervened and provided a rim in his place. Former President George Weah thanked Muslims across the country for their continued contributions to Liberia's growth and development. He encouraged them to use this festive period as a time for reconciliation, unity, peace, compassion, and gratitude while reflecting on the spirit of sacrifice and sharing in the joy of the celebration. Foreign Minister Sarah Besto-Yanti has called for more or major reforms within the United Nations system and stronger accountability among member states as the term of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres comes to an end later this year. Speaking at the opening United Nations General Assembly debate on upholding the purpose and principles of the United Nations Charter and strengthening the UN Center International System. Mr. Sarah Besto-Yati said, Liberia remains committed to protecting the values of the UN Charter as one of the four original African signatories. The foreign minister warned that growing practice of selective application of international rules is weakening the credibility of global body. According to her, the challenges the challenge facing the UN Security Council is not the lack of rules, but the failure of member states to apply them consistently and fairly. Mr. Sarah Bresto-Yanti further stressed that peace and security cannot be separated from development and justice, adding that poverty, inequality, exclusion, and poor management of natural resources continue to drive insecurity around the world. The former Director General of the National Public Health Institute of Liberia, Dr. Dubé Christian, has warned of regional Ebola threat. Dr. Yan, speaking on a local radio station Wednesday, raised concerns about the worsening Ebola situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, including the threat it poses to neighboring countries. He described the situation in DR Congo as alarming, noting that the outbreak continues to worsen on a daily basis. The former public health expert also expressed concern over conflicting information regarding whether Ebola cases are in Liberia, stressing the need for authorities to focus on risk communication and transparency to maintain public confidence. He also questions the 4.2 million United States dollars are requested by health authority to start early preventive against the reported outbreak of Ebola in the DR Congo. The Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia Central has welcomed a draft bill seeking to establish the National Anti-Corruption Code in Liberia. The institution says the move is a major step in strengthening accountability and fighting corruption in the country. Speaking at a press conference Wednesday in Monrovia, Central Executive Director Anderson Myean praised President Joseph Boakai for submitting what he called two important bills to the legislature. According to Myean, the bills is to establish the War and Economic Crimes Code and the National Anti-Corruption Code. The center boss also said the proposed anti-corruption bill will help reduce delays in handling corruption cases and provide the enforcement of anti-corruption laws. Something said the code will also help address problems such as overcrowded court dockets and weak institutional capacity. He also commended the office for the establishment of War and Economic Crimes Code for working with stakeholders to draft the proposed law. Senta is therefore calling on members of the House of Representatives and the Senate to quickly hold public hearings and pass the bill into law. Meanwhile, Senta has expressed serious concern over findings from a recent audit conducted by the General Auditing Commission, stating that the audit reviewed Liberia's revenue collection system from January 2018 to December 2024. According to Anderson Miami, the audit discovered major gaps between government revenues collected in tax systems and deposits made into the government's main revenue account at the Central Bank of Liberia. He further stated that the audit also reportedly found unauthorized withdrawals, delays in remitting government revenues, and inconsistencies in customs and tax systems. The Central Board disclosed that the institution is deeply troubled but reports that more than 257 million United States dollars and that's in $22 billion Liberian dollars recorded in bank accounts could not be traced to government's main revenue account. The chairperson of the Law Reform Commission, Councillor Bonavama, has underscored that the institution will this week hold a high-level validation exercise for its five-year strategic plan in Ganta, Lima County. Speaking to journalists in Monrovia, Councillor Vama said the exercise scheduled to run from May 28th to May 30th, 2026 is intended to shape the institution's legislative and policy direction, while the next 5 years will focus on governance, reforms, economic development, and institutional strengthening. According to him, key priorities in the strategic plan include the drafting of legislation for a proposed budget and planning commission, the review of Liberia's 1986 constitution, the establishment of a Liberia infrastructure fund, and reforms to a Liberia maritime authority law. Obama also disclosed plans for a comprehensive national local content law to protect Liberian interests in construction and investment agreements, as well as the establishment of a dedicated land court to address land disputes more effectively. At the same time, Law Reform Commission boss says the commission has already adopted several landmark legislations under his leadership, including a proposal for Liberia's first ever family code and reforms to the National Housing Authority Act. The further revealed that revised acts relating to the National Food Assistance Agency and Liberia Water and Sewer Corporation will soon be submitted to the Office of the President for onward submission to the National Legislature. Councillor Bono Verma reaffirmed the Commission's commitment to advancing legal reforms that promote accountability, economic growth, and social justice in Liberia. Amid deepening internal divisions within the opposition Congress for Democratic Change ahead of the 2029 elections, former Masarauta County District 2 Representative Jimmy Smith has criticized the party's leadership, accusing its executive of betrayal and ingratitude despite years of personal sacrifice and financial support. Speaking during a recent appearance in Painesville, the former District 2 lawmaker and respected Liberian security expert made revelation about the intent of his contributions to the CDC during its rise to power. According to Representative Jimmy Smith, he personally spent more than 70,000 United States dollars for his own pocket to renovate former President George Weah 9th Street residence during the heat of the 2017 presidential campaign. A contribution he claims will never acknowledged by the CDC hierarchy. He at the same time claimed that he financed more than 80% of the CDC 2016 political trip to Greenfield, Sando County, describing it as one of several major financial commitments he made to strengthen the party before its historic electoral victory. The former representative said his unwavering dedication to the CDC came at a personal cost, only for him to later face abandonment and political betrayal from individuals he once considered allies. In a bold move aimed at transforming learning and administrative operations for reliable energy, Louisville County University has officially broken ground for the installation of a 100 kilowatts power the solar power system, signing or signaling a new chapter in the institution's drive towards consistent and sustainable electricity. The groundbreaking ceremony held on the 26th of May 2026 brought together university administrators, faculty members, students, county officials, and representatives of A1 Technical Engineering Solutions Limited. The event Grace that commenced with a guided tour of key facilities across the campus, highlighting areas expected to benefit from the solar initiative. Providing an overview of the initiative, The president of the Lofa County University, Dr. Isaac Poland, disclosed that the solar project is being funded by the government of Liberia as part of efforts to improve energy access within public institutions. According to Dr. Pola, the installation of the 100 kilowatts power, the solar power system will ease the institution energy challenges, reduce operational costs, and provide a more stable electricity supply to support teaching, learning, and administrative work. Dr. Pola emphasized that the contract was awarded to A1 Technical Engineering Solution Limited following a competitive procurement process, while the Rural and Renewable Energy Agency will serve as the owner's engineer to oversee the implementation. Criminal Code A Wednesday released 46 pretrial detainees from the Monroe Facility Prison for successive court terms, many for more than 4 years without indictment. The detainees' crimes ranging from murder, aggravated assault, theft, robbery, burglary, and rape, among others. Joe Christopher Willie attributed his action to the statutory periods without trial and overrunnenness of the prison in violation of human and constitutional rights. As such, the court does not want to associate with this. The prison, which was built for 378 inmates, now has 1,000, that's over 1,000 pretrial detainees and competes. George Whistler said there is a need to complete the Chisholm facilities so that the Monroe Center prison will be decongested, adding that convicts and pre-trial detainees should not be placed in one cell. Joy Willie disclosed that next week another bunch will be released provided if they have not been provided or indicted for this term of court. And a wave on Liberia briefly, a flight carrying nearly 300 Ghanaians repatriated from South Africa amid fears that there could be a resurgence of xenophobic violence there has landed in Accra, Ghana. Ghana's government chartered a flight from Johannesburg following a wave of protests against illegal migration in South Africa. Further departures are expected in the coming days. Roughly 800 Ghanaians registered for repatriation. The country foreign minister joined other officials at the airport in Accra on Wednesday in order to welcome the first set of arrivals. A total of 297 Ghanaian citizens arrived on Wednesday. Ghanaian High Commission for Africa, South Africa, for the BBC. Thus, RCI News Bulletin. Let's take a short break. To be right back. Many thanks for rejoining us. Let's now bring you the voices behind the newsmakers. The Grand Mufti of the Supreme Council in Liberia has called for unity, peace, and reconciliation among Muslims in the country. Sheikh Abubakar Sumarulu said the observance of Ibrahim Day should serve as a catalyst for unity and peace among Muslims. Divorce of Sheikh Abubakar Sumaru. He is the Grand Mufti of the Supreme Council of Power in Liberia there speaking, also making remarks during the prayer. The chairman of the Sacred Setting Committee of the National Muslim Council of Liberia is Sheikh Abdullah Masari. That's the boss of Sheikh Abdullah Masari. He is the chairman of the Sacred Setting Committee of the National Muslim Council of Liberia. They're speaking on the head voice of the Grand Mufti of the Supreme Council of Power in Liberia, Sheikh Abubakar Sumaru. They're speaking. Foreign Minister Sarah Yanti has called for major reforms within the United Nations system and stronger accountability among member states. She spoke during the opening of the United Nations General Assembly debate upholding the purposes and principles of the United Nations Chapter and strengthening the UN Center International System.
the credibility of the entire system. The normalization of inconsistency itself is a dangerous precedent. Second, the Charter's promise of peace is inseparable from justice. Insecurity emerges from poverty, inequality, exclusion, and the mismanagement of our natural resources. The Charter's provisions on development and human rights are not peripheral, they are foundational. The future authority of this future bridge the divide between security and development. Third, the Charter assumes good faith. Without a minimum threshold of trust, even the most carefully crafted rules lose their force. The Charter challenges us not only to comply, but to believe the possibility of reformation even amid disagreement. Mr. President, therefore, Liberia makes the following calls. First, for the Charter's provisions. Article 27 requires that a party should restrain abstain from voting on related council decisions. While we thank the UN Secretary General and Secretaries for leading us to 2024 Pact for the Future, let's bring what the Pact for the Future means. It reinforces this obligation and all members should implement it fully and without selectivity. Second, strengthen veto accountability. General Assembly Resolution 76 which mandates a debate following any veto must be treated as a serious accountability mechanism rather than a procedural formality. Third, invest in African-led peace architectures. The African Union, Silencing the Guns Initiative, ECOWAS-led interventions have all demonstrated effectiveness and legitimacy. Fourth, and perhaps most fundamentally, we must address the conditions under which the Secretary General can exercise genuine independence. The Charter tasks the Secretary General with acting in the interest of the organization above all else. That is a custodial role with direct bearing on this institution's capacity to maintain peace and security and uphold the purposes that member states and the peoples they represent committed to in 1945. Yet, that custodial role is compromised when structural incentives pull in a different direction. A Secretary General seeking reappointment has every reason to avoid the decisions that general reform demands.
Meanwhile, Sarah Yanti has also intensified calls for more African representation at the United Nations, declaring that Africa's continued underrepresentation threatens the legitimacy of the global body.
The question of Security Council reform remains urgent. Effectiveness cannot be sustained without legitimacy, and legitimacy cannot endure without representation. When the Charter was adopted, much of Africa was not represented. Today, the continent is central to the Council's agenda, yet remains underrepresented in its permanent membership. The Common Africa position, as articulated in the SOE consensus, is clear. Africa seeks no fewer than 2 permanent seats with full prerogatives, including the veto, alongside additional non-permanent seats. This is not a demand for privilege, but a call for equity rooted in the principle of sovereign equality, something the UN Secretary General Guterres continues to iterate. Member states seeking a permanent seat should not be coupled with the rights of Africa. The situation of the injustice in Africa needs to be dealt with separately. Reform is also about conduct. The use of the veto carries moral consequences. When exercised in situations involving mass suffering, it raises fundamental questions about the balance between power and responsibility. The relationship between the Council and regional bodies should be one of partnership, not delegation. Mr. President, the UN is at crossroads. The Secretary General ends later this year. He's given us a pact for the future. He's giving us many ideas about what needs to be done. Now the choice of a new leader cannot be separated from the question of what we're asking them to. A machinery that cannot deliver on the promise of security and human dignity does not uphold the Charter, but betrays the people's in whose name it was written. We the peoples for which the Charter opens is not issued. Those words represent the mother in Sudan who has fled from her home 3 times. It represents a child in Gaza that has known no day of life without fear. It represents a civilian in Ukraine who has to endure another winter of war. They are the community in the Sahel who looks at the institution for protection. When we debate the purposes and the principles of this Charter, we are debating the conditions of human lives. Is it not time for us to pause and reset to avoid a similar fate of the League of Nations? Are we prepared to give the next Secretary General the freedom in the new thinking that new times and new realities demand? This would not be weakness, but rather strength in giving we the peoples what we deserve. A more representative, a more responsive, and accountable United Nations is within reach. If we collectively summon the will to achieve it, let us reaffirm not only the words of the Charter, but the values that give those words meaning. Doing so will not only preserve the legacy of those who founded this organization, will answer to those who are in the most need of this organization. If it is not done now, then when? If it is not done by us, then by who?
Before Solomon Sarah Yanti, she's Liberia's Foreign Affairs Minister there, speaking and calling for major reforms within the United Nations system during the opening of the United Nations General Assembly debate on upholding the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and strengthening the UN Center International System as the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres term ends this year. The Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia Central has welcomed a draft bill seeking to establish or create a national anti-corruption code in Liberia. The institution says the move is a major step in strengthening accountability and fighting corruption in the country. Speaking at a press conference Wednesday in Monrovia, Central Executive Director Anderson Myean praised President Joseph Walker for submitting what he called two important bills for the legislature.
On social media to state that executive mansion to a official social media and executive mansion like your published state executive of Black submission of human justice and accountability bills to the legislature. The president's submission of these two significant social commitments and act establishing a war and economic council and an act adopting a new Title 17E of the Liberia Code of Law requires establishing a national anti-corruption unit of whom that preceded and official submission of the draft physical of the law and economic council on May 6, 2026 at the executive mansion in the despite the relative progress made by conservative government in the fight against corruption over the years, including the establishment of the structure, the idea of whistleblower and witness protection, and other laws, the spirit of prosecution of those investigated and accused of corruption has come strong progress in aiming the culture of impunity for corruption and strengthening other anti-corruption reform. The Center for Transparency and Accountability in Nigeria is particularly pleased with the indelible steps taken by the government to ensure the establishment of the National Anti-Corruption Code. We extol the Office of the Law and Economic Council for working with diverse stakeholders to develop these groundbreaking bills. When established, the code will address long-standing challenges regarding impunity for corruption and other related offenses in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Anansi Meyame has expressed serious concern over findings from a recent audit conducted by the General Auditing Commission, stating that the audit reviewed Liberia's revenue collection system from July 2018 to December 2024.
Also, before all ordinary Nigerians, civil society, the media, and other stakeholders to debate the legislature and executive to complete those very important aspects. Pledging council support to not be created to the general revenue that producing worthy and 55,000 plus Nigerian dollars in a company account for the two product regulations are the taxes are raw customs to tax collectors when paid in cash and received by tax collectors for to targeted periods, thus exposing public resources to tax corruption and other abuse. Concerning preventive inputs and other audit reforms, it works to the need to strengthen transparency and accountability in the collection, preservation, and management of the natural resources of the country, which are needed to fund growth, construction, education, health, water, and other critical services and sectors. We know that May 19, 2026 World Trade Conference set by the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, Nigeria Revenue Authority, and the Central Bank of Nigeria, in which we heard GSC for the report and highlighted particular injuries in legal efforts, including the revision of banking agreements, governing fundatory accounts and revenue 2009 to strengthen accountability, mandatory submission of dividends report by commercial banks to MFDP and QBL to improve monitoring and reconciliation of government revenue, the deployment of aggregated systems for customs data as included by LRA and data customs and other locations to automate customs processing and remove manual intervention, and LRA's transition to an upgraded version of Apertura version 2.4 to enable direct electronic integration with commercial banks and the Central Bank of Nigeria.
That's the voice of Anansi Meyame. He is the Executive Director at the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia. They're speaking. If you're just joining us, This is a reminder that you are in tune to News Desk for the 5 minutes of news from the news and current affairs department here at the Renaissance Communications Incorporated. We transmit on our central studio here in Dupont Road, Painesville, outside the nation's capital, Monrovia. At this point, we join Naomi Tapia to bring us the world of sports. Good evening.
Welcome to the Passion of Life. The leadership of the Liberty Federation through a competition committee has informed the public that due to the status weapon contact between Ghana, Congo, and 17 in Nigeria at a common Sunday state contest on Saturday, late competition in the state league matches for that day has been rescheduled for Friday, late 29th, 2026. The matches affected include Queen versus Cricket Stars 2 match expected to start 12 noon, and Ancestors 2 match 12:50 p.m. United Sisters versus Divine Sisters 1:40 p.m. Children's Squad 1 and DFS match 2:30 p.m. National Sports Association in Yasmo match 3:20 p.m. Amazon and Destiny Gigi 4:10 p.m. Bishop and Kamara 5 o'clock p.m. These matches will be played on Friday, May 29, 2026 in Saturday, May 30, 2026, according to the Liberty Federation Competition Committee. The Sports Betting Association of Nigeria has informed the public that Human and Development Training Minister Austin Gbarntolmah is served as the guest speaker of the Sports Bettors Association of Nigeria Awards 2026 ceremony, marking one of the major highlights of this year's highly anticipated ceremony. The sports bettors announced recently that their second awards ceremony is set for Friday, June 5, 2026 at the FCB Sports Complex. The Diamond Awards ceremony is expected to bring together athletes, first journalists, administrators, stakeholders, and distinguished guests to celebrate excellence in outstanding achievements in Nigerian sports. Prime Minister Justin Gbarntolmah will serve as guest speaker. The event is expected to attract an array of sports and national stakeholders, dignitaries, and personalities that across Nigeria. Red carpet activities are expected to begin at 6 p.m. while the new event officially starts at 7. Away from Nigeria, United States manager Mauricio Pochettino has looked back at criticism over the uniform players, whether or not it has made his 26-year squad for the World Cup. According to their analysis, the former coach of the PSG Barcelona players who were left out. In contrast, Pochettino sent zero messages to the 26 players included in the squad. Even ESPN Football America show former U.S. forward Nicolas Gomez, who played ex-U.S. manager John Kingsman for informing him of his donation for the 2021 5-year offensive inexcusable for particularly not the Congress players because particularly defended himself with a new action arguing that players do not want to speak to him immediately after being caught. Barcelona has joined 1 minute in a race to find a captain for Anthony Gordon. The La Liga champions scored an interest in an England international in an impact with Newcastle over a potential deal. Although Barca have had unnatural restrictions in recent years, the club are understood to have the ability to spend whatever is generated from player sales. Dominic has also joined former discussions with Newcastle for BBC Sports to their skills with further there was a gap in valuation between the two clubs. Newcastle Chief Executive David Hutchinson made it clear to the minister players on their teams in March. The club are in a relatively strong position with a minimum of 70 million US already, whose contract does not expire until 2030. Meaning successful to La Liga party is just the start of this new local Barcelona star, says the sporting director Emmanuel. Barca beat Real Madrid this month to win the Spanish Cup with 2 games to stay and retain the title with a new generation of La Masia Academy graduates, including the likes of Lamine Untitled to their second successive title has been clear. As a build, a team which means they will not have to go out to the market and put the price here. So therefore, they want only an 11-0 a push for the title or through the exit of the Champions League in the quarterfinals. That's how it's.
Naomi Tapia and the Passion of Last Sports is a regular feature here on News Desk. In World News, the former Director General of the National Public Health Institute of Liberia, Dr. Christian, has warned of regional Ebola threat. Dr. Christian, speaking on local radio, wanted to raise concerns over the worsening Ebola situation in the Democratic Republic of Congo, including threat it poses to neighboring countries. Our reporter Karis Kanda has a report.
The situation in DR Congo is in a precarious state. It is worsening by the day, and so there's international continental mobilization of expertise in Africa CDC in particular that is obliged on the continent to respond to outbreaks. So that is of serious international concern, as stated by the WHO. Uganda has fewer more cases than the DR Congo, and that is what is concerning because all of these countries in the region they share borders. What we are looking at is a possibility of cross-border transmission within the region, and it is still over to other African countries because there are flight connections with those countries, whether direct or indirect. With the recent circulation of contradictory information regarding the situation of Ebola in the country or not in the country, where we need to start from is a risk communication aspect where we have to regain the confidence of the people, of the population, by educating them and telling them the truth and be transparent with the people. For 16 persons, where did they come from? They came on a plane. According to the people, they are Congo and Uganda. So these people were also sitting next to others on the plane. So what is the situation of contact? That we need to know. And while you are treating the ones you are suspecting, the contacts, if infected, can be the ones to transmit the virus. $1.2 million at the DR Congo, where the situation is rating, is requested for $7.2 million. The $4.2 million requested is in the NGO annual project. Starting with $10 million will make some reasonable sense. and keep them in after every one of the one. Not before this year, 2022, was horrible.
Thanks to our reporter Caris Kanga for that report. Finally, the chairperson and chief executive officer of the Law Reform Commission, Councillor Bono Vama, underscored the institution will this week hold a high-level validation exercise for its five-year strategic plan in Ganta, Lima County. He made the disclosure on today.
The Law Reform Commission, under our leadership, will this week conduct a high-level validation exercise for its 5 years strategic plan in Ganta, Lima County. The strategic validation exercise is intended to determine the Commission's policy and legislative direction over the next 5 years, with a focus on strengthening governance, promoting institutional reforms, and advancing Liberia's legal and economic development. The validation exercise will begin on Thursday, May 28, 2026, on to Friday, May 30, 2026. The 5-year Untitled Chapters, several critical national reform initiatives, including adapting legislation to establish the proposed Budget and Planning Commission aimed at separating the budget and planning components from the Ministry of Planning and to ensure greater efficiency, coordination, and long-term national development plans. The review of the 1986 Constitution of Liberia, which after nearly 40 years contains several provisions considered obsolete and being made of modernization to reflect current democratic realities and government standards. The establishment of the Liberian Infrastructure Fund to support sustainable infrastructure balancing national development priorities. The review and amendment of the Liberian Maritime Authority Act to enhance regulatory effectiveness and improve the competitiveness of Liberia's maritime sector. The drafting of the comprehensive national labor contract law for Liberia intended to provide a holistic liberalization paradigm that protects and promotes Liberian interests in concession agreements and major investment activities. The establishment of a dedicated land court for Liberia to address land-related disputes more effectively and strengthen access to justice in land matters. The regulatory reform relating to Liberian business registry and other governance and commercial regulatory program all captured in the standards. The Commission informs the general public that under our leadership, the Commission has successfully drafted several landmark legislations aimed at strengthening Liberian justice and government system. Among these achievements are draft legislation for Liberia's first ever family court intended to address family-related matters through a specialized judicial mechanism, as well as a review of the banking system and establishing the national authorities to help national development policy coordination. The Commission has also successfully reviewed and revamped the establishing the National Food Assistance Agency and the Liberian Water and Sewer Corporation of 2017.
The voice of Councillor Bono Vama. He is the former president of the Liberian National Bar Association, who now serves as the chairperson of the Law Reform Commission, taking us home on this May week edition of the program News Desk. As we take a leave of you, a recap of our headlines. President Joseph Boakai extends greetings to Muslims in Liberia on the celebration of Abraham Day as Grand Mufti of the Supreme Council calls for unity, peace, and reconciliation among Muslims. Foreign Minister Sarah Yati calls for total reform in the United Nations system and stronger accountability among member states. Former National Public Health Institute of Liberia Director General Dr. Myean warns a regional threat to Ebola, questions the 4.2 million United States dollars that was requested by health authorities. And away from Liberia, following continuous immigration protests in South Africa, first Ghanaians evacuated land in Accra, Ghana. We'd love to say many thanks to our writers, contributors, correspondents who made today's edition of sources. Thanks to Nyampi Daniel Darcy, Usara Control handled the technical aspect, while Maya Torgbean was here streaming us live on Real TV and closing argument on behalf of the news team, Abena presenter Johnson Gbarntolmah. Good night.